What is up, everybody? Got a special interview today. You guys, if you've been following the channel for a while, we talk about layer one blockchains all the time here and on the Know It Owls channel. Today, we have one that's been in the works for a while, but a lot of people don't know about it. It's called PraSaga, and they're built specifically for automotive and healthcare. We got the CEO, Mr. Michael, here on the line. Michael, how you doing today, man?
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Vincent.
Yeah,
Appreciate the time here.
no problem. Thanks for coming on. So, Michael, why don't you just start with an introduction, introduce yourself, explain how you got into crypto and what inspired you guys to start building PraSaga.
Absolutely. That's a long story. Only because myself and my co-founder, David Bieberman, are old. So we actually both started out in technology industries, not knowing each other, of course, in 1978. He was 14 years old and going into high school and couldn't write legibly, so he wrote a little computer program utilizing the Wang computer operating system. He actually went to school with Dr. Wang's daughter. Wang Computer used to be a huge business, like IBM size, Xerox size and such. And it was something called WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get. And that became the word processor, the Wang word processor, and the basis for all word processor sense. What you see on the screen is what you get on the paper. And I started out pulling cables in attics and crawl spaces in 110-degree weather in Las Vegas for my dad's interconnect telephone company and installing phone systems. And worked my way through telecommunications and networking. Did a brief stint in the 90s did some advertising and marketing for some international organizations. And then got back into the internet with an ISP in, I think, 1996. That's an internet service provider. At the time when it was all dial-up and we were giving dial-up services to the masses. And then came up with I've had 4 companies, 2 exits. One of them was a telephone company in the 80s, and there was this one. And it was an ASP, application service provider, it was called, and I was one of the first ones to put this into action. And today you know it as a cloud. We were just hosting SAP and PeopleSoft and Oracle ERPs and such, and then selling that a per seat to corporations, so they didn't have to worry about that. And it evolved into what the cloud is. Dave, kind of the same thing, but he's been in protocols and programming languages and such. How we got up to here is I started getting into the Internet of Things somewhere around 2011. And David was also with another company called ICUS, which does this real-time Java runtime for industrial control systems and such, and embedded systems. And we met at a conference somewhere, and I have a message bus that's very high performance, mandated by the DoD for all real-time communication, voice, video, chat, message, and presence over the internet. That is the reason for doing this. We saw the IoT, the Internet of Things space, really start to not looking like it was going to get to the levels that they were predicting. Like GE was saying, if we create 1% efficiency across the entire global industrial world, we'll see 31 trillion in new worldwide GDP. The problem is that all of these big BMOs have a real problem with sharing things. So they all wanted to build these walled gardens. It's their data, it's not your data. And they want to sell the data because they're offering you a service. We pay these platforms, they take all our data, and what they give us in return is we get to watch ads that they also make money off of because they're selling our views then, right? So it's still that world. And one of the things that's worrying me right now, by the way, on blockchain is like R3 going out there, starting to understand. It seems like the centralized systems are starting to try to move into here and take over some of these platforms, right? Okay. And it's a little scary right now. But to where this is, we were going to implement a blockchain onto that message bus. A message bus is very high performance. And we started an ICO. We put out a white paper in 2017, 2018, raised a small round in early 2018, and we're asked a simple question: how are you going to make it scale? And we thought they were talking about our message bus, which scales better than anything out there, but they were actually referring to the blockchain. So at that point, we backed out of the ICO and said, okay, because we have a problem. We've been doing this a long time. Dave's had 4 startups also, responsible for a lot of the technologies that turned ARPANET into the internet and the internet into the World Wide Web through the protocols that he's been involved in writing. And we just have a problem saying we can do things before we know that, yes, we can do them. So we pulled out of that, went into research. I got to tell you, every single chain works. Every blockchain out there works. Every layer 1 works. It's just, what does it work for? And going through everything, we got to the point where, yeah, they do great. They can move a wallet address from one smart contract to another smart contract. They're very good at that, but that's really all they can do, right? Is simple token transfers. So, and that's not what we needed for everything that we were looking at doing. And because we come out of the industrial world, we understand how a simple purchase at a counter at a 7-Eleven for a soda, how complex the back end, everything that has to happen on the back side of that is. You don't know that. It just takes 2-3 seconds in order to do this. But there's all kinds of inventory systems, supply systems, everything that this has to go through in order to make sure that our supply chain's up to date and all that kind of stuff. So we wanted to make sure that we were putting something together that actually allowed for enterprises, because we believe the way there's going to be mass adoption is the way that it happened with the internet, through enterprises introducing new ways for their customers to engage with them that actually saves time. Right now, blockchain to the rest of the world, it adds more tasks to your day, and your day is already full and stressed out. So we believe that as in that, the enterprise introducing the technology or introducing a function to the consumer, without the consumer knowing this is a blockchain or anything, it's just, oh, here, this is making my life easier. That's when we're going to see mass adoption. I think I saw a report yesterday that there were about 2.7% of the world population is active accounts. And how many multiple accounts do you have? I know I have a MetaMask with 4 in it.
Yeah.
Right. So how many is that actually in terms of people? But that's how we got into it, to decentralize IoT.
Okay.
And I can tell you how we ended up where we're at.
Okay, I love that. So I want to piggyback off what you said. Kind of leads me into my next question. I'm sure you heard the concept of blockchains as cities, right? When you have blockchains built for specific things, like they call Ethereum New York, Solana LA. You have chains built for gaming. But like you said, all chains work, but just like the old saying, if you try to be everything to everyone, you'll be nothing to anyone. And what I really like about what you guys are doing, Michael, is that you're building your chain for a specific industry and solving a specific problem, which is automotive and healthcare. So if you could just talk about how you guys are solving a problem in the automotive industry and the healthcare industry, maybe some partnerships you guys have in the works, and all things around that area, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I need to correct. That happens to be 2 of the categories that's up on our website. But we are actually, if you look at it, I compare it to Oracle and SAP, and the way that they both approach their products and going out to market. SAP, when they launched as a specific ERP system for manufacturing. And that was it. They were industry specific on what they were going to do. And then they grew from there once they captured that market. What Larry did over at Oracle is they said, no, we're a relational database management system. We don't have a specific industry. What we have is we have a core offering that can be customized to any industry that's out there. And so you have to, that's what you have to consider us. And I'm happy to show you exactly why through just a simple diagram on what a smart asset looks like. So to your question, how are we addressing this? And it's in our architecture itself, getting rid of smart contracts and implementing. It's what we could be considered the core layer for blockchain. Now, after quite some time of being involved with Dave and understanding this and how it works and what it's really doing, so we started out to integrate a blockchain into a very high performance message bus, figured out that we couldn't do it. Also, the blockchains work great. They just didn't work for that. Okay, we're going to build a layer 1 blockchain that can do what we needed those to do. And what it's actually become through this architecture, and we've introduced a new data model to blockchain. The first is UTXO. The second is a smart contract data model, which every current offering other than UTXO is a smart contract data model, basically, right? I don't care if you're SUI or Aptos, or their smart contracts they make them as objects, and multiple smart contracts can reference, but they're all the same thing. They're a serialized data set. So all the data sits within the smart contract, and regardless of how much you want to do parallel, when you get to that smart contract, you queue. You have to wait. You cannot execute multiple transactions out of the same smart contract at the same time. It goes one at a time. We call it MS-DOS over here. And I don't know if your audience remembers what MS-DOS was, but that was a command line operating system before Windows came out. Windows is based actually on MS-DOS, if I'm not mistaken, the underlying architecture. Anyways, so going through all of that, what we came to is we have to look at how can we do parallel execution, how can we scale for capacity? And that's our biggest differentiator. We're not trying to scale transaction speed. We have a POW that takes 15 seconds, depending on when you get into the flow, the transaction flow. It could be 15 or 30 seconds, depending on where the block is. If the block is already completed, then you're in the POW for the next block. So it'll always take 30 seconds to do it. But what we can do, and we approach this is and we borrowed from the architecture of multi-core processor. So we know how multi-core processors work, and we also understand that if you are pulling data from the same data set, so if core 1 is processing data and core 2 is it wants to process data, but it's coming from the same data set, the same smart contract, core 2 has to wait until core 1 is done processing before it can start its process. So what you have to do, and what they do in multi-core processing, is they figure out ways to guarantee the data independence of every transaction on a core. In our world, every transaction on a shard. So as long as we know that this transaction on this shard has all of the accounts that are necessary for it to execute, then we're going to be able to execute this, and there are not going to be any latencies, because you don't have to now, okay, if I, in smart contract world, and look at it at a grocery store, I'll kind of bring it up a few levels, right? In a grocery store, you have checkout lanes. In a smart contract world, checkout lane number 1 is pork. Number 2 is beef. Number 3 is chicken. Number 4 is broccoli. Number 5, and so on and so all the way down the line. That cash register is the smart contract. Think of it that way, right? So you have a basket and you have multiple things in there. Well, you go to lane 1, and the only thing that you can check out with the checkout at lane 1 is the pork. You're not allowed to check out the beef, the chicken, the broccoli, the beans, whatever else you have in that cart, because that smart contract is just for the pork. And that's kind of how the first iterations came out of Ethereum and such. Now, Multiverse and Near and others have started to execute or shard the transaction. So that basically means, in the grocery store scenario, lane 1 sees that the beef lane is slower or less of a line, so she asks the beef smart contract or the beef nodes in order to execute this one. And that's great. That speeds up the transaction, but you still have to go back to lane 1 to get your receipt for the pork, because it's still in the smart contract of the pork. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So you're serialized. In our world, there is no smart contract. Every node can execute every single transaction, that as long as it's got all of the accounts that require that transaction to be executed. So the thing that we're finishing up right now, and this is what really separates us from everybody out there, Multiverse does great, Near does great. They've done everything that they can to shard a smart contract platform. They did a fantastic job at it. But what they can't do is they still have the dependency on cross-shard communication. This smart contract, if there's another smart contract and another shard that need to execute something in order for this to finish, that means that it has to lock up this shard, transfer that over there, get that smart contract to execute, and then transfer that back over, and then unlock this and do this. You're still serialized to those smart contracts. In our world, what we do is through this algorithm that we have now, every shard has a leader. It's a leader. There's multiple shards. Each shard is its own core. Each shard processes its own blocks and its own transactions. There's 256 nodes on a shard, or whatever the number ends up being, 1,000 nodes, whatever it ends up having to be hit that security level that's necessary. It will, and so transactions are sent out. All of the leaders get the transactions, and they run a trial execution. And then what that trial execution does is informs them of all of the accounts that are necessary in order to execute that transaction. And then each shard leader sends up a request to the account negotiation leader to negotiate for the accounts that are not on their shard to be moved from the other shards to their shards. That's done. All of the accounts are moved over to the appropriate shards where they need to be to most efficiently execute the transaction, and the transaction is executed. And then the accounts go to whatever the shards they need to go to. So it's a matter of stopping the NP complete, the non-deterministical polynomial complete problem of distributed computing. And that's how can you efficiently make sure it's the traveling salesman, right? What's my best route in order to do this the most efficiently? And that's really that's the core of our tech. And we're just about to release that in our private testnet that we have up right now. We got a couple shards and we're doing blocks in parallel and transactions. It's actually our dev environment. We're letting you live view our progress. Now, is it slow? Yeah, you don't see code typing, right? What you see is when there's a new function added to the sagascan.prasaga.com, you just see things happening, right? And we're optimizing, we're fixing, finding bugs and everything, but we're letting you view as we're doing it. So that's really the difference between us and everything and the other layer ones out there. And that's what they're great. We scale capacity. And so that means that if I can do, the goal is 4,000 transactions every minute. So 1,000 transactions per block. 1,000 1 meg transactions is a 1K or 1K transactions is a 1 meg block. So that would be a good average. So that average, it could be one transaction that's a meg, right? And then that runs every 15 seconds. So that means 4 blocks per minute. So that's 4,000 transactions per minute. So that's like 66 transactions per shard. Now remember, the key is per shard. So I'm doing 4 blocks per minute per shard. So in 2020, there were 531 billion prepaid debit and credit transactions done globally across all platforms. A total of 47 trillion in dollar volume. That on our chain would be 253 shards at 66 transactions per second per shard. That's 16,000 transactions a second. You just take 16,000 divided by 66. Now, are we going to reach 66? It might be more, it might be less, don't know. But you will be able to see exactly where it is. So we're not increasing the speed of the transaction on each shard because we're POW or POS. The POS makes the block, the POW secures the block. That way you can't fork the block because the POW didn't make it. And then we do another round of POS. And that to verify that, yes, the block was done. And then we move that hash up to the leader, and that hash is shared with the leader to all the other shards. So that 15-second block now is times however many shards are out there in the fully hash braided chain.
Great explanation. Super appreciate that. And I love the analogy of the grocery store. That makes it really digestible. So now I want to talk about a topic that's really popular in the industry that you guys claim to solve. You guys claim to have solved what's called the blockchain trilemma. And just for the audience who's not familiar with that, you have decentralization, you have security, and you have scalability. Most blockchains optimize for 2. Bitcoin and Ethereum are famously known to be very decentralized and secure, but not scalable. Like Bitcoin can do like 7 transactions per second or something like that. And if you look at the Ethereum roadmap, they're trying to modularize their blockchain. So they have like these layer 2s and these shards that'll help, free up block space so that they can, solve the trilemma. But, it hasn't been done yet. So I would love to hear your guys' explanation on, how you're attacking that and solving that trilemma.
Right. Yeah, and it kind of relates right back to what I was talking about with our account negotiation. We call it Saga Scale, which is the account negotiation algorithm that allows us to solve for that NP complete problem. As far as decentralization, that's the first and foremost to us, right? You're just going to, on mainnet, you just download a Docker container and turn up a node, right? There's going to be a stake. Because on the POS now, we're not going to do a slashing on the stake. If you do something bad, you just get put into a queue and never get put back into the blockchain. But your stake is all yours, so that we don't have any, we're not taking anything from you. You're just putting that up there to be honest. But if you're not, you're just gone. right? And I guess you can come up with a new username or account or anything. But in most cases, if you want to have voting rights and everything like that, you do have to, you'll be fully anonymous on the blockchain, but you KYC, you just happen to have a certificate somewhere in the world that's from a verified provider that on the blockchain, it's just a hash. And that hash, it's an object. Here's my certificate object. Great. The blockchain sees you have a certificate object. The data is not sitting on the blockchain, but it validates that, yeah, you can transact in full compliance in this type of transaction. So it's a really cool thing with these account containers, the way that they're set up. So on the trilemma, decentralization was the main thing. So you're just going to download a Docker container and run it, right? The more nodes there are, the more decentralized it is, of course, right? The foundation is not here to run nodes. There will be some that are run. We will also run a master node that's a complete copy of the entire history of the entire chain forever. A lot of that will have to be archived and everything. But if it ever goes down, there's got to be something to start from, right? And we're figuring out, how community can participate and understand, in validating that no, nothing changed. That is the true history and everything like that. So if it ever does have to happen, we are a full one account, one vote system. I don't give a shit how much money you have, how rich you are, or how many Saga coin you have. If you have an account, and again, a verified account, yes, you are a human being, you are a citizen, you will get an object put into your account container when a vote comes up. It's a vote object, and you'll be able to exercise that object just by yes or no, whatever it is. So the idea is to make it as simple as possible to try to get as much participation in the vote. We know it's hard. I think Ethereum gets like 18% or something like that of involvement. But we want to make sure that at least everybody has an opportunity to be involved in that. So that's the other part of decentralization. It is run more as a constitutional type republic with recommendation boards. When we first were talking to Switzerland, they asked, what's your governance like? And I asked them, well, what's yours like? And they said, well, if we put a proposal out, we can't implement anything unless we have a majority vote from the citizenry. Well, that's exactly what ours is. So we're a digital Switzerland, I told them, right? We have recommendation boards. It doesn't matter. The monetary policy board, you have to have economists that understand monetary and banking policy in order to be able to make recommendations to any minute changes that may have to happen, right? The equation isn't changing, but the variables may, right? The same thing on the treasury. I mean, you need people that understand traditional hedge and funds and such like that, right? But so it goes down the line in community and technology and such. And so proposals will come through that, right? We will have a system where you can come up locally, and the idea is to grow this as an organic ecosystem, have ambassadors and champions, and do meetups in different towns and such. Have in the larger regions, have like collabs where people can come in and do co-hosting, co-office space and such. And we'll have a venture studio. The idea as we, build the treasury and raise money, right? We didn't do a big ICO. We don't have hundreds of millions of dollars sitting in there in a launch coin. We're just getting to that point of having the coin. And then I can tell you how we're going to make revenue also. But just kind of go through that and keep it as decentralized as possible. Dave and I, the voting we have to bootstrap for a few years to make sure it's fully optimized and everything like that. But Dave and I expect to be not in day-to-day operations and just sitting on the board and working on the philanthropic side of the house in 4 to 5 years in the community, completely running and managing this entire thing. And that's what the ultimate goal is to hand it over. I haven't tracked too much about how Charles just did his, but he just did a big thing on handing it over to community, the Cardano ecosystem.
Yeah.
And he's just over at IOHK. Same expectation here. This is a self-sustaining. Guys, we built everything utilizing all of our experience and such. What we actually built into, and I don't think I got into this. If I did, I apologize for repeating. What we finally ended up being, instead of a layer 1 blockchain, as looking at it, we are working with standards bodies now on making programmable smart assets and international open standards as how you represent an asset on a blockchain or on the internet. So what we turned into is this Saga OS, or this whole architecture, has become a persistent state data management extension of the internet. It just happens to be being delivered by a layer one trustless, open, permissionless blockchain. It's really hard to grasp that, but we just made a way that you can manage any object on the internet. It's because that's it. It just runs on the internet, right? You just download the node and you've got this global namespace. You've got a single instance global class tree, and you've got a single object state database. It's a key value database. Every single object is represented by a 256-bit ID in a database. It's a single layer database. Any object can talk to any object. We have multi-inheritance, so I can inherit from hundreds of different objects to make a new type of asset, a new object. I can bring on traits. Think of it as DNA, my family tree. And that's where I'll get into this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Let me share this here, because this will be real interesting. This is what a class tree looks like. Instead of smart contracts, we have their Python source scripts. It's just Python source, just simple scripts.
Okay.
SP class object and SP class account. One of the things that happens in both in legacy and is happening in blockchain is everything's cloned. I'm cloning everything. Now, SUI and Aptos and such with Move kind of changed that a little, but they're still tied to the serialization of the smart contract. Think of fungible asset as an ERC20, right? When you write an ERC20 contract, you're copying the ERC20 contract, you're editing it to what your ERC20 is, and you're putting all of that ERC20 contract code right back on the blockchain, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we just writing single instance of code? Every single object that's ever created from now until eternity will all start from one single instance of code. So everywhere you are in the world forever, you'll know what an object is because it's got a general universal standard open definition. Same with every account, SP class account. What kind of account is it? Well, you can make all different kinds of accounts. All you're doing though is saying my parent is SP class account. Me, the sibling, is a business account. And then my business account happens to be, and you define. Same thing here, fungible asset. This is an easier way to look at it. And a fungible asset, ERC20, we keep rewriting what a fungible asset is. Same in legacy systems and Web 2. We keep writing what the thing is when we already know. What this blockchain allowed us, and let's put in this meta class object model up, is to create a single instance global class tree. So now, every single fungible asset that's ever created from now until forever comes from one single global instance of code. It can be versioned, but it's still coming from that and tracking back to here. You make a version of this, it's going to reference back to here. Now you say, I want to make a fungible asset. Well, so part is a fungible asset in a supply chain. Well, the thing is, just like fungible asset, it's a global definition. It's fractionalized, and I can send it to numerous accounts. Same non-fungible asset is a single. Part is a globally accepted term in all supply chain everywhere. Everybody knows what a part is. So why do we keep writing what a part is? What if we just had class parts sitting up there? And I want to go ahead and add a part now to a supply chain, to my supply chain. And all I do is go to class part, and I define what my part is. It's a wiper blade. It's uses this metal from this supplier. It uses this rubber from this supplier. Here's the certificates that tie to those suppliers. All of that is now your object in your account. The state of everything that ever happened to that object is in your account, not in a smart contract. You now have a full provenance of every single item ever touched forever, from cradle to grave, and every transaction that ever happened to that in an immutable, persistent database. Is this making sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And that actually brings me to my next question. So I was reading your guys' stuff.
Uh-huh.
Had a section in there on stabilized purchasing power. And, we're talking about mainstream adoption and how, how this thing is going to be adopted mainstream is when people are using blockchain without knowing that they're using blockchain. And right now,
Uh-huh.
having to buy the token for the gas, it definitely, puts a roadblock in there. And I think Polkadot and XDAI, they're really working to spearhead that and make it so that you don't have to own the DOT token, or in XDAI's case, you can pay gas fees with like stable coins.
Uh-huh.
So if you can explain the stabilized purchasing power, do you anticipate gas fees being expensive? And will the gas token be the PraSaga token? Just all things around the gas and the transactions.
Yeah, so Saga coin, which is the coin for Saga chain, it's a utility coin. It's there to pay transaction fee just like ETH.
Okay.
No different than that.
Keep a balance in it so that it can.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're a different system. You'll have an account on Saga chain. You set up your own account, just like I was talking about, right? You have SP account, like if I'm still sharing.
Yep.
This is the entertainment class tree. If you notice, it's got the same classes here, but instead of a part, it's a rights certificate. Instead of a assembly, it's a protected content. SP class account, business account. Well, you have your manager, you have your producer, you have your copyright owner. These are all classes. They're all defined. Now in entertainment, imagine 3 columns. The center column is the artist. The right column is the end user, the purchaser of the art or the song. And the left column is the suppliers, the manager, the producer, the copyright owner, the content creator. Right now, there's 2% of all royalties go missing every year. There's a company, Rightsline, that did 12 billion in royalty payments in 2023. That means that $240 million went missing from just that one company in royalty payments. From whether it was the company that lost or the artist that lost, don't know. But that's a large number. Now imagine if the artist, all of her assets or his assets are now objects in his account or her account container. They own all the stake to every single piece of IP that they have. The only way anybody gets access to there is to ask the artist, and the artist can give a rights certificate saying you can listen to this song once, 5 times, 30 days, whatever. You can customize, program whatever you want that rights certificate to be for you, representing and for your relationship with this person or for this user. Now the royalty payment comes in through the artist, but the blockchain automatically will go ahead and distribute the percent, that percent of the royalties that belong to the suppliers, the manager, the producer, the copyright owner, the content creator, and every single thing is tracked in the immutable database. You will not have $240 million a year in loss anymore. And the artist now owns all their assets. It's in the hands of that created it and that which it belongs to.
So basically, since you guys are made to scale capacity, you guys can handle an increased amount of capacity without transaction fees rising with that capacity.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the way that we're looking at transaction fees. And sorry, I wanted to go that because it really exemplifies what we're talking about here. As far as transaction fees go, our idea here and our approach to it, I should say, is to do it through managing a queue, a latency queue for transactions. So we know that it's 15 to 30 seconds for a transaction, and that's not for a transaction. That's for it to complete and be settled within 30 seconds globally. I think we're going to set a minimum at about a quarter of a penny or something per transaction, plus whatever storage has to be paid for, right? But really low cost and such like that. The idea, because we can dynamically add and remove resources, so we can add a shard and nodes, as long as we have enough nodes in queue waiting to come and be a node operator, we can add and remove those resources based on the queue, the average latency that somebody is waiting in line for their transaction to go into transaction flow and be done within 15 to 30 seconds.
Okay.
So because we can do that, and because we can keep that queue average, there's no sense in having to do, bid ups and the downs and everything. And it also should keep the transaction fee stabilized, not stable, but stabilized to a degree, because why? I don't have to, it gets through in 30 seconds.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
By the way, that's the same way our staking works. The more transactions there are, the higher the stake is going to be if you're coming down to stake. The lower the transactions, the less, because we'll need more node operators in order to do more transactions, in order to keep that transaction queue. So yeah, sorry, I wanted to throw that in too.
No, you're good. That makes sense. Thanks for clarifying on that. So now, do you guys have a date for when you plan on launching the mainnet? I know you guys have the test net.
Yeah, so that's a little different. It'll be in 2025 at some point. Mainnet will be launched. So with the foundation, we had to make sure that, and one of the top things is, community, and one of the things that I always have to do for the community, kind of being the custodian of this until we turn it all over, is ensure that we don't fall into any regulatory issues sometime in the future. I don't want a frickin' Wells notice, right? So under FINMA laws, because we are a Swiss nonprofit, it was basically, they started to enforce a part of the utility and payment token verbiage that they had been using for regulations. In the past, and the verbiage that I wrote, I had read was, is now or will be in the future utilized as for utility. What they started to enforce was 3 additional words: on functioning chain. So that means that until we had a functioning chain, we could not go out. We couldn't do an ERC strategy like everybody else did, or a lot of other projects did, and then convert over to their coin, right? Layer ones would go, they'd launch an ERC on ETH. This was in 2018, 2019. And then they would convert over once their layer one is up, and it allowed them to raise capital to token sale. And then that would just convert over. So because of that, we had to wait until we got to, and we're finally now at this point. So what we have up now is like I said, it's our running blockchain. Our dev environment, we have a public viewer on it. And that means that we show that, yes, we do have functioning code. And we spoke with our legal and everything over in Switzerland, and they say, yeah, you're now compliant with what would be considered functioning code. You can see blocks, you can see transactions running on a blockchain, so that code functions. Now, what we have to do is we have to do the dynamic aspects of the chain. We have to do the BLS signatures and the signature aggregation. In fact, if anybody's out there wants a contributor, come in and do a bounty like for coin and such like that to work on the next phases of this blockchain, please do. Code.prasaga.com/SagaChain is our GitLab, and all the sources sitting in there. We're love to have contributors to this. We have a lot of Saga coin. We are starting to do grants. We just had an announcement with Avio, which is an accelerator incubator, is fairly established. We put together, we're going to do $1 million worth of Saga coin in grants. Whatever size they are, there's going to be a lot of different grants given through there that are going through their accelerator incubator that want to build up on Saga Chain. It's not liquid yet, but we're definitely starting to take applications now in order to go through the process. Those that can and have a little funding, great. Otherwise, it'll be liquid, and this is our strategy. We now have the chain functioning. We're not doing a TGE. We're going to mint coin over a few consecutive blocks, kind of like Satoshi did with Bitcoin, right? He minted the first batch of Bitcoin, and then he let other people come on and mint. We will mint the allocation, and we will put it in a PraSaga Foundation treasury account. It'll be viewable through the public viewer on the private testnet. You can see it all there. The testnet goes down, it comes back up with the same amount. It's coming from it's on a database that's right there. So all of those things are there. You will always be able to see and view exactly what's happening with that. We will then take an allocation out of that treasury account and put it into a wrapped coin account. And then we will go ahead and we're going to do a launch pad. Our goal is do it in December. I'm told that the last 2 weeks of December aren't very good. I don't understand too much because Asia is usually active during that time before they fall into Winter Festival in China. But to do a wrapped coin, do a launch pad offering, raise a public round, and then have the wrapped coin listed onto Central Exchange soon after that. While we finish up the rest of the code here, go to public testnet and go to mainnet sometime in 2025.
Okay, so you guys are launching the token before mainnet, and you're launching a wrap token, I'm guessing on ETH?
ETH, BSC, whichever ones
okay.
we can, right? Yeah.
And you're going straight to the centralized exchanges. Are you guys going to spin up any liquidity pools on like Uniswap or anything like that? Or
once we have capital, yeah. for sure. I mean, we'll probably Fuel and Foundry is one of the big ones that we're going to do, and that liquidity pool, we don't have to put anything on the other on the other side, so we're definitely doing that. And it's kind of are you familiar with them? I know a lot of people are, but not
What's the
everybody.
name of it again?
Fjorn.
No, I'm not.
Fjorn Foundry. Okay, and they kind of have it's a liquidity pool type thing, like Balancer
Okay.
was, right?
Well,
In that type of approach, right?
Weighted
Market
liquidity pool, so you have to have. Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And then we currently have a private. The public node reservation or sale, and this is it's a node sale, and we're looking for 1,000 node operators to participate in public testnet.
How intense node requirements?
So the node requirements, it's basically just a Docker container that you're going to download and run a script and run. We're just finally kind of figuring that out right now. We're running some 8 gig servers with 100 gig drives and I don't know, 100 meg connection, maybe, if it's even that. I don't know if that's where it's going to end up, if it'll be a little more like 16 gigs or less. We're kind of running through all that right now. Okay. Right now it's running a little higher because the Docker container does contain all the Go code, which isn't necessary to be in there, all the dev stuff, all the logging stuff, which on the dev side. So all those tools don't have to be in the containers when people start to run it. But it won't be inextensive, right? It's still going to take up a lot of space after a while. It's not small. We've made it so that your state, you only have to have active state of the account at that time on any shard. So you don't have to continually, as a node, have the entire state on your shard of an account, just what's ever active or at that time.
Got you. Okay.
So you don't have to have the history.
So I know you said you guys may launch on Binance. Any U.S. exchanges? I have a lot of U.S. people in the audience. Yeah,
we've had discussions and pre-approvals from Bitmart, Probit, and Mexi. So Bitmart, I believe, is U.S. Based, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, we're good with that. I mean, that's one of the things. KYC, we believe regulation is there. It protects both sides. Can we do it with full anonymity? I believe we can. That's what we wrote here, right? Because that's really the biggest problem. When you go to a bar, you give them your ID. Well, now the bouncer, the cocktail waitress, and the bartender know where you live, that you're not home, and can easily tell anybody to go, do it. Not as secure as you want it to be. So why do you need to show them? They don't need to know that information. They just need to know that you actually comply with whatever the regulation is for them to go in. And that's really what these account containers and what leads to individual sovereignty set up.
Okay, I love it. Last question before we wrap up. Thank you so much for the time and the great explanations on everything. I was looking at you guys' milestones. We talked about the token. We talked about mainnet launch. You guys have any other milestones we should be aware of, or any partnerships that you guys are working on that maybe you could share about being announced or anything like that? Or anything for?
Yes. So as far as that goes, we work, we have a thing, it's called the Tiger Team, and the Tiger Team is inside, it's part of the Digital Twin Consortium. Digital Twin Consortium is about a 5-year-old organization that's 300 or so enterprises and small businesses and academia that get together in order to collaborate to solve problems that they all face. Because if we can solve problems that we all have, it may allow us to have offer a better customer experience and increase our margins, our bottom line, which is what they're all about, right? So they get together and work on that. We have a Tiger Team set up. We have a couple now already joined. We have, now that the code is to the point where we're about to release the software development environment, anybody can download. You can set it up in a private network. You can run shards. You can run a Saga chain, transactions, accounts, see how that works. You can start to build applications or classes and test out your applications and processes on it, all of that stuff. What we're doing is there's 12 different working groups in there, aviation, healthcare, pharma, fintech, and so forth. And they're joining into our Tiger Team. We're defining generic process flow for like supply chain. Think of that chart I showed you earlier. And generic process flow. Okay, so what is the process flow of a supply chain on the generic level? So it's automotive, aviation, cosmetic, it doesn't matter. It's a supply chain. and what objects in that process flow are universal across the board. Okay, well, let's go ahead and let's now define those, create classes. Your whole proprietary thing shoots off of this, but we're all starting from this same thing. And then I brought on a new advisor. His name is Jay Clark Stevens, and decades in cable industry, technician. He was on the board of the UPnP, Universal Plug and Play. Everybody knows that from their Microsoft Computer. And he was also a founding member and on the board of the Open Connectivity Foundation for IoT consumer devices and such. He's come on board, and we are now starting to put together the coalition to define what we're taking, like the things at the DTC and what others are contributing to the project. We had Alex Norda, who runs a blockchain group at the IEEE, is going to be participating and contributing. He actually, what we did, he's like, I programmed in Smalltalk when I was a student. He goes, my God, what you did here is inspiring, right? And it's on LinkedIn. I'm like, God, that's nice. Thank you. Just an open comment, right? It was just in the comment as I shared a video. But anyways, he came on board, and he's bringing on teams in order to develop use cases and write the proposals to take the standards. That's one of the big milestones, is turning those programmable smart assets class part into an international open standard.
Okay.
Let's just define this, guys. And that's where I went to. We are an actual data management extension of the internet. That's it. We have this single database that can manage any reference to anything. And that's really where this project is. It just happens to be delivered by this layer one blockchain. But the real thing here, the product market fit, is being able to give the auditability, being able to give that. So that's the next milestone. And then there's some partnerships that'll be announced. We just did the one with Avio. There's going to be 3 or 4 immediate grants awarded to some RWA projects that they're already working with. And then we have some initiatives outside of that with some enterprises and such. We had a very good call today with a major global enterprise that is actually a service provider to large enterprises that we all use for music and delivery and all that kind of stuff. And we're starting to develop the proposals and demos in order to go forward to those companies and say, hey, this is how we work this much more efficiently. So we'll be announcing that partnership with that organization over the next months. It's definitely 90 days or so. It takes a while to agree to terms with billion-dollar organizations, even when it's just hey, tell them you like us.
Sure. Bureaucracy is a real thing.
I swear to God. And this is the hardest sale I've ever had in my life. Guys, it's free. I'm not asking you for anything. Yeah. And look what it does, right? Just look at the function that this is delivering. And everybody that sees it, they're the one that call out, you solved my auditability. I actually had a gentleman from a large pharmaceutical tell me, you just showed me a platform where regardless of what regulation the FDA or any other ministry comes up with, regulatory body comes up with, I will automatically be in full compliance because I now have an immutable record of everything that happened to anything that we've ever touched at the pharmaceutical company. And when anything comes up, I just can immediately pull the data and give it to them. There's nothing that they could come up with that I wouldn't have, that they could think of, that I wouldn't have the data for with this approach. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what this is. That's how powerful. And on recalls, I'll leave with one more thing. On recalls, they also look and go, oh, so now I can know exactly which lot that device that's malfunctioning came from. So I don't have to recall 500,000 vehicles. I only have to recall 5,000. So there's a lot of benefit to the function that this is offering compared to those smart contract platforms. I'll stop there.
No, that was a lot of good info. So Mike, I just want to thank you again for coming on here. Just to tell you guys what his links are, or what PraSaga's links are. They have a website. All the links will be in the description. They're on LinkedIn. They're on Telegram. They're on Discord. They have a Facebook page as well. Be on the lookout for the mainnet launch sometime next year, the token launch sometime this year. Michael, thanks for coming on, man. And as you guys start to do more updates or anything, feel free. You're always welcome back on the channel.
Oh, Vincent, I really appreciate that, man. Yeah, no, absolutely. Hopefully I will be coming on often. Hopefully there's that much activity going on, right?
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
That's awesome. But everybody, please, thank you for listening. Let me bend your ear here, and hey, join the community, follow the project, please. We the people on the team aren't the ones that are going to build this. We're just kind of directing a way that to enable the things that you're all capable of. So
Absolutely. Well, Mike, it's been a real pleasure, and looking forward to having you back on soon.
Beautiful. Thanks, man.
No problem.